As I unleashed a slavering horde of savage orcs on a dwarven artillery crew, or watched my brave Empire pikemen swarmed by killer bats and legions of the dead in Total War Warhammer, I kept coming back to a single thought. Why did it take so long for someone to make this game? The sheer bloodthirsty synergy between the time-tested Total War formula and the Warhammer world made me forget most of its small missteps quickly. By casting off the shackles of history that have constrained its precursors, Total War Warhammer is able to introduce fantastical new units, like lumbering giants, soaring Pegasus Knights, fireball-flinging wizards, and ancient vampires who can take on entire infantry formations single-handed. The blood-soaked bounty this opens in terms of army differentiation, unit diversity, and new tactics makes Warhammer feel like a more natural fit for the series than the past ever was. Out of the 4 factions in the campaign, my favorite is the Greenskins. On the strategic map, their armies run on fightiness, which is based on how much havoc they've been causing. Low fightiness leads to attrition and infighting, but max it out and you'll spawn a second AI-controlled army called a WOG. This was nirvana on those days that I didn't feel like worrying about settlements, unrest, or unit composition. I just wanted to run over some outnumbered humies in a disorganized mob, making latrines of their pretentious civilizations. The vampire counts, by contrast, are required to spread a province modifier called vampiric corruption into adjacent provinces before invading, lest their troops evaporate in the harsh light of day. This forced me to plan my wars many turns ahead. That faction embodies the creeping, oncoming dread waiting at the end of a horror movie. Dwarfs and Empire, while still fun, fall much closer to the mold of a traditional Total War faction, which made them feel less exciting by comparison to their inventive rivals. By the time I'd played about 100 turns of each faction, I was struck by the feeling that I'd seen most of what the campaign had to offer in a relatively short time. It's disappointing that the small number of factions translates to only 4 starting scenarios, and the bonuses from starting as a different lord within the same faction are insignificant. On the other hand, the sense of ownership and personalization of these larger-than-life generals and agents has never been stronger. Skill trees are much deeper and more impactful, allowing you to make truly terrifying single combatants, preternatural beacons of morale to shore up even the flightiest soldiers, or some hybrid of both. My lords and heroes were almost always kicking the snot out of some terrible beast wherever the action was thickest, and I couldn't help but zoom way in to cheer them on. The hero formula wavers when it collides with the bigger, optional story quests. They're well done when you can get to them, but I didn't get to see that many. Later quests expect you to march your best generals and best army to some far-flung corner of the map, possibly a dozen turns round trip, which I really couldn't afford to do unless my borders were completely unthreatened. Which was never. The arrival of the hordes of chaos on the scene is a major turning point that transforms the scenario from a simmering cauldron of smaller conflicts into a thrilling, desperate bid for survival. But that arrival always seems to come a bit too quickly when the northernmost factions are still in the mid-game power consolidation stage. The initial phases of exploring and interacting with the world, completing quests, and solidifying your dominion over the lesser factions of your own race could definitely use some extra breathing room. Total War Warhammer is brimming with exciting ideas, interesting characters, and outright skull-stompingly delightful units and faction mechanics. The current roster of campaign options feels thin, but each army is a distinctly different experience. Some are more fun than others, but none feel underdeveloped. Deep hero progression and a well-executed chaos invasion round out a campaign that fulfilled all of my deepest fantasies of seeing giant, impossible armies clashing amidst the shrieking of griffins and the glow of flaming meteors summoned from the sky. It's just a damn good time. For more on Total War and Warhammer, stick with IGN.